Hi, my name is Amanda Panacea, and you're listening to the Healer Revolution podcast. This is a community for self-healers, biohackers, practitioners, and any other helping professionals. You're in the right place if you're seeking conversations about how pain becomes passion, the connection between physical, energetic, mental, and our spiritual self, finding your body's ancient wisdom, the latest biohacking technologies, clinical research, and if you just want to nerd out about complex biochemistry and quantum physics. But this is also for entrepreneurs who seek infinite abundance and a supportive community. So pour a cup of King coffee or Sisters tea and let's join the revolution. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Healer Revolution podcast. I am your host, Amanda Panacea, and today I am super excited to introduce my friend, Jenna McInnes. She is a student for life, a really great friend. She's fascinated by the human condition. We have a really great conversation about what's going on in the world today, making good circles of people, and just really finding your true self. She's an entrepreneur, a human potential coach, a health consultant, an avid biohacker, and a gatherer of all perspectives. So I hope you enjoy our conversation. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Healer Revolution. I'm Amanda Panacea, and I'm really excited to introduce one of my friends, Jenna McInnes. She is a health coach, and she has a really fantastic, resilient story for you guys and a lot of really interesting things to talk about. So hi, Jenna.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Of course. I'm really excited to hear more in depth of your story. I know a little bit about it. We've collaborated in the past, but I'm really interested to see also how that kind of ties in with what you're doing now and your direction on the future. Because I feel like you have a little bit of a different direction than a lot of people that I've spoken with on the podcast in the past. And I feel like it's really unique.
Cool. Yeah, I'm happy to share.
Awesome. So yeah, if you could just go into, I guess, maybe let's start from the beginning. Like, how did we even become friends on Instagram? Because you're in Canada, I'm in South Florida. We're very far away from each other.
Isn't it so interesting? Like they can say like your best friends in the world lately. It's like my people are all on Instagram. Mm-hmm. Well, 98% of them. You know, Amanda, I don't exactly remember how we met, but it was here. So I don't remember like over what post or whatever, but I think we've both been on these really extravagant healing journeys. And when I say extravagant, I mean like, we both really think outside the box. And I think you're like me in the way that like willing to try anything, like really easy to like find a rabbit hole to go lose yourself in and nerd out on the information. I think that's how we initially connected.
Yeah, I do remember it was because of mold. And I just liked what you were saying. I loved your green hair. And I was like, I think I had pink hair at the time. And I was like, this girl and I are going to be friends.
We're unicorn sisters.
Yeah, exactly. So it was definitely something in regards to mold, but I know you have a really in-depth story that really starts at childhood. So if you could kind of just start with wherever you're comfortable and kind of let us know like how you got to this space.
Okay, awesome. So I grew up in Ontario, Canada, and my parents split while I was 2. I have an older brother, 2 years older than me. And my mom always had these beliefs of like, all she ever wanted was a family. She just wanted a family. And regardless of the circumstances, I think growing up, my mom not only suffered from complex chronic illness, that we can tumble down the rabbit holes of how that affects a person, and let alone their children, but also had these ideals. I call them rules, bullshit rules, that have been ingrained in us from the time that we're super little, of how you're supposed to be and what life is supposed to look like. And so my mom was told all the time, there's nothing wrong with you. It's all in your head. Everything that she was experiencing from physical symptoms wasn't really happening. I remember that she she was prescribed antidepressants, and that she slept a lot. And eventually those turned into a couple different diagnoses. So my mom had lupus, Bell's palsy, and plantar fasciitis. I know you know where I'm going with this. But all things nowadays that we can look back and say that looks like Lyme disease. Mm-hmm. And now that we know that Lyme can be passed in utero, as well as it's been said, it can be passed sexually. It's not just ticks, it's fleas, it's anything, any insect that bites. So this isn't confirmed, by the way, but my looking back, everything I can see related to my mother's health history is related to Lyme disease. And I also grew up in a moldy home. Fast forward 30 years or so. And during lockdown, my partner and I got pretty sick. So did the dog. And I'd been living in that house for 2.5 years prior, but we found out we were living in mold. And interestingly enough, I have learned that I have really great mold detox genes, but that mold is my gas pedal for Lyme. And that likely, I mean, it's possible my mother doesn't have Lyme disease. There's been no diagnoses, but that this thing that I have been working on my entire life, which like my mother was told, symptoms after symptoms after symptoms, you've got irritable bowel syndrome, you've got all of the symptoms of this, but none of the biomarkers for that. What I was experiencing in my body wasn't actually happening. And here, just take a medication to try and fix that. And I mean, I went through the courses, like I was on birth control for a really long time. I played with thyroid medication for a while that like my endocrinologist at one point tried to refer me to the psych ward because it put me in a chronic hyper aroused nervous system response again. So I have been put into positions in my life, learning lessons that I'm super grateful for, to always be curious, always dig deeper, because I knew to the very core of my being that this nothing is wrong with you, it's all in your head type gaslighting thing wasn't true. I knew to my core that there was something there, that there was a piece of this puzzle that was unknown. And whether it was unknown to the doctors or whether they were taught to look at those things or not, regardless, that I had to take responsibility for my own experience on this planet and in this body, especially because of watching what my mother went through, that there was no way I was going to allow myself to become a victim of whatever this experience was, which is very spiritual, physical, mental, all of those things put together. So my life journey so far, especially because my mom was asleep a lot and, did the best she could with everything that she had to raise me, but I had to learn how to human. And my role models were lots of people. And I was always like a really good student. School was so easy. So I would just go to school, do my thing. Like I remember in high school, I had like keys to the office and I like hung out in the teacher's lounge and like worked in the library on lunch periods because I think I was more like the teachers than I was the students. And I think that just comes from like having to grow up at a really young age. But it's really incredible to look back at all of that and see where I could have been as opposed to how I chose to, like I said, learn how to human. And that's really ingrained in me and really stuck in me now. It's like every single day I ask myself through any situations, like, what is this teaching me? What can I learn from this? How can I grow? How can I evolve? It's been interesting in business because something that I get super interested in and then I integrate and then eventually I'm onto something else. And it's like I'm a magpie to shiny things when it comes to growth, which I think you know what that's like.
Yes, definitely.
Just collecting information and storing it somewhere back in your head that you can just pluck out at any time. But this last 2 years, I've never been more in alignment with my truth. This whole idea of keeping up with the Joneses or the things that, like the cycles that we lived in. Like I was a hairstylist for so many years and in my head, those bullshit rules that, you have to work Mondays, or you have to work weekdays, mornings, evenings, and you have to be available on a weekend. Well, what does that serve me? Right? Like coming back to learning, like, how do you put your own oxygen mask on first? And that's not selfish. And then living from that place. And then allowing the things to fall away and shed that aren't in alignment. And I really genuinely feel like these last 2 years have amplified that. Like they've really turned up the volume on like what's for me, what's not for me, what direction I need to move in, grow in, to continually be a better or best version of myself.
Beautiful. Thanks for sharing all that. Something that I really love about you is that radical responsibility that you mentioned, and just really taking life like by the horns. Like, this is my responsibility. The more I feel like you take things into your own hands, the more control that you definitely learn that you have over things. But then also something else I'm wondering if you struggled with is like the flip side of that is feeling like that responsibility that you have to like fix yourself or fix other people, or just constantly trying to fix things. Like, do you feel like you might struggle with like fix it culture and surrender or peace or patience at all?
I've definitely gone through periods of that. Like, I also would maybe say that I outgrow people really easily. So that fix it culture is really deeply ingrained with my evolution at the same time. Because if I'm constantly learning and growing, and the people that you attract at certain aspects of your life, like, so say partners, you know, like I went through a period of learning where I would date people who weren't open to growth. You know, it's like I look back now and maybe I bonded with that person over a trauma of some sort, but that if you are somebody who continually grows and is moving forward, and if your partner or your friends aren't open to that, at least open to it, they don't necessarily have to be doing it as well, that you can really, I don't know, it's a very different world to live in. But the fix it part, like, definitely got ingrained for me from like a learning perspective. So because I'm not a doctor and wasn't formally trained, I was constantly just looking for information. So, and I think this happens a lot in the health and wellness space. Like when people have a story, you know, I'd learn about some symptom and I'd be like, oh, that kind of sounds like me. And then like tumble down every single little rabbit hole regarding that. And it's like creating a web of information in your brain that you can access at different times. So the fix it culture thing, it's yes and no. Like I definitely go there, but it doesn't feel like a burden. It feels like a necessary, like, weaving of growth for me. But I do remember going to a wellness retreat once, and I think it was a course called anger, safety and boundaries. And they posted a quote, and I can't remember what the quote was. It was a Carolyn Myss quote, but something along of that, like, you choose everything that happens to you in your life. And I remember vividly how angry that made me, because I had been sick all my life. In my experience, like, I was constantly trying to figure out how to feel better and getting like not even zero help from doctors or professionals, quote unquote, but like negative help, like like them pushing you in the wrong direction. So I definitely have been trying to, quote unquote, fix myself, but from more of an understanding place that like nobody else but me is in my body. And nobody knows what I'm experiencing. Like maybe I can't even articulate that the same way that somebody else can understand from their experience. And yeah, I feel like I'm rambling at this point, but like I just
No, I get it. I think that wanting to fix things or at least learn about them is a curiosity that makes you like amazing at, you know, helping other people or just being able to understand complex topics. But for me, this is something that I kind of struggle with back and forth. You know, I want to understand and learn as much as I can, but at the same time, I struggle with like self-acceptance, and that, you know, when you're constantly chasing like, there's something wrong with me, I want to get better at this, or I want to learn more about this. It's almost like, am I really surrendering and accepting myself like on a really deep level if I'm constantly like looking for the next thing to learn or to fix or to understand. And, you know, when it's understanding something like spirituality, or if it's understanding something like, you know, how the world works in a way that's going to impact your life or your business, but then versus going after trying to learn a new biohack or learn something about how the body works in the in the intention that something's wrong with you and you're trying to figure it out, I guess is where balancing the scales between the two.
I totally get that. I think I look at life like it's a puzzle, and you're never going to finish the puzzle until the day your life closes. And you're always going to be adding to finish the puzzle. And who knows how big that puzzle will be or how small that puzzle will be. But I'm very cognizant and aware that if I am not growing, I'm dying. And I know that sounds a bit extreme, but it's like a plant. If you have a plant and it's not growing, it's dying. And I strongly believe that we are the same. And so this whole idea of being open and curious is how we grow, right? We don't have to agree with everybody. We don't have to be on the same side. Like, there's so much polarization and pain in the world right now. And I constantly am inviting people to remember that if you are so closed and rigid, you can't grow. The idea of being open and curious about the world, about yourself, about what a doctor says to you, about the things your children are taught in school, about like entertainment, like curious of the way the world works. Like, I am fascinated by what I like to call the human condition. Like, experiencing people be people is fascinating to me. I struggled a while with feeling like maybe it was judgment, like me judging other people, but no, I literally am just walking through life trying to understand what makes people tick. You know, I really genuinely think that everyone on this planet is doing what they think is best, right? And it's like, how can we just meet each other there?
Yeah. And so this makes me wonder, how come you didn't go into like psychology or counseling? How did you choose hair?
So I didn't choose hair. Hair chose me. Again, super interesting growing up story, but like, I started working in a salon when I was 13. And my guidance counselors at my high school made it so that I could co-op every semester. So like, I don't know if you have a co-op program in the States, but you're able, like, usually it's like once I think 1 year in grade, we had grade 13 when I was in school, but in grade 11, 12, 13, you could take a class that was called co-op, and you technically go and work somewhere. They don't pay you, but like, you go and you learn by working. So I was on some lucky streak was able to get this position where the guidance counselors figured out how I could do that each semester. And so I would go work at the hair salon, I don't know, during third period, and I would work for them for free till the end of like what my quote unquote school day would be. But then I would stay till 8:00 at night, because that too, I moved out on my own when I was 13, which that right there was me being, I need to be in charge. I need to be behind the wheel and out of the way of managing my parents' drama, trauma, whatever you want to call it. I was like, hey, like, I need to learn and I need to go to school and I need to grow, and I can't deal with you guys, which is really interesting looking back. I was the one who made that choice for myself. And it was probably the best decision I ever made. But again, I was forced to grow up at a super young age. So when I was 13, it was, you know, probably the equivalent of like a maturity level of, I basically was my mother's mother growing up. So I forgot what you asked.
Oh, no worries. Let's take it from here, because that's really young. Yeah. You lived completely by yourself and paid your own bills at 13?
No.
Okay.
So interestingly enough, the survival mechanisms that my mother had passed on to me, you know, like not that's not even interesting. Like, that happens to everybody, right? So my mother, I believe, learned to be manipulative to survive. And I mean, like, that's so prominent in everyday life for people who don't even realize it. I did it for years and didn't even realize it. But my parents like divorce went to the Supreme Court. My mom, I went to like 8 different elementary schools. We moved around a lot. And when I finally decided like I'm done, I actually just went to my dad and said, like, do you want to win this? Because if you'll pay my child support and pay for me to not live here, like, because at 13, you're old enough to not have to draw a picture for a psychologist anymore or a psychiatrist who decides the fate of you as a child, that I was now old enough to stand up in court and say what I wanted for myself. And I very much manipulated my father into paying my rent and supporting me.
I think daughters do that to their fathers in general.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, again, one of the best decisions I ever made.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up living with friends. I boarded for a while, but very much still made my own rules, but like my meals and stuff were cooked for me. And then I think by the time I was 15, I rented out a room in a house with a 30-something-year-old and her 10-year-old son. And so like, I wasn't really like fully solidly on my own till I think I was 17. But even when I was boarding or living with this other family, like I had my own keys. I came and went as I pleased. I just happened, I was a roommate.
Mm-hmm. So did you struggle with like drug abuse, like getting into trouble, crime? It just seems like the cards are stacked against you of being like alone at 13.
No.
That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And so I mentioned I have an older brother. And when we were young, he got into a lot of trouble. In a lot of ways, it taught me like not to do that because I just wanted to learn and grow, and it's still how to be a better human. Mm-hmm. Like, how am I going to make it in this world? Because my mom, my dad, my family were all too caught up in their own stuff to really help foster my growth or support me. You know, they loved me and absolutely had no idea that that's what me as a little person was experiencing. I mean, I didn't even know that till later in life. I just knew like, I need to get away from this in order to grow. And yeah, I'm curious about that too. But I think like the few things that like my brother got into trouble pretty young, he ended up in juvie. And I mean, like he's gone the other way now, but like he was acting out and I was just like, oh, I don't want anything to do with that.
Did you go the opposite where you became like the super good girl?
Well, I mean, like having keys to the office at school and like being able to not go to class because I was running student council stuff and running, I don't know, like fundraisers for the United Way. So kind of like,
yeah,
but it was with purpose. I wanted to do good and I wanted to learn. Mm-hmm. And like, that's still, Amanda, as you know, so ingrained in me.
Yeah, I resonate with that as well. I didn't leave home that early, but when I was 17, I knew way prior to this, I knew that my only chance out of my small little hometown in West Virginia was to go to college far, far away. And so I had to get good grades. I had to make it work. Like this was it. I was not going to get stuck there. And in order to like figure out who I was and be my own person and get away from every single person around me and all their crap and everything that I thought I knew you have to flee. You have to get out of here.
It's interesting working in hair salons. So like I said earlier, like I didn't really choose that. It chose me. I was always really into creative. Like I was always very creative and hair kind of like was an outlet for that. But being a stylist taught me that, again, like I wanted to be a coach. And that happened because as a stylist, you have people sit in your chair and they want to dump. Like I often said, once I got my coaching degree, or not degree, but certificate and kept learning, was like, I need to be charging you people double.
Yeah.
like if you want a therapy session at the same time. So it was hard to have boundaries with that, but very much being behind the chair gave me a way to study what I call the human condition and to learn from other people and to grow from their life experiences or their shared life experiences, the things that they would share from me. And like, I went through periods of time where, I'd have people in my chair who would tell me about, cheating on their husbands or that kind of stuff. And it took me a long time to realize, like, and politely ask those people not to come back.
Yeah.
And just simply because I don't want that type of drama in my life. And they're paying me to do their hair, right? Not dump something like that on me and I mean, I guess like when you think about it, it's my choice on how I take that. But I don't know, I learned a lot. And, I still dabble in hair besides the other businesses I run because of the relationships I've created over decades of like, there are certain people who it's like family, right? You get to hang out with some of your family, be creative, have really great conversation. But it's like, I don't take new clients anymore. I'm not interested in the like just the creative process. Mm-hmm. It's really important to me. I mean, they say you're the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? So whether that's from a financial perspective or any perspective, it's surrounding yourself with like-minded people who are open and curious and who always try to find the silver linings and things. And for a long time, I find I'd have people come and sit in my chair and they'd want advice and they'd want to talk about things. They would never get out of that cycle. Mm-hmm. It's like I've been seeing them for 7 years and we're still having the same conversation. And it's exhausting.
It is. Yeah, that's why people that work one-on-one with people, whether it's with hair, coaching, therapy, bartending, you get burnt out very quickly just from just hearing stories after stories or just seeing no progress, day in, day out. People aren't getting better. And then sometimes at the same time, you may be in that cycle of what you mentioned earlier, that working yourself constantly and feeling like you have to be available for all these people because they're obviously so bad off and so sick and not getting better and they need you, they count on you. And then the burnout rate just skyrockets.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in hearing more about like these other businesses that you have. So what was like the deciding factor that made you decide, okay, I'm going to go into coaching. I'm going to kind of foster my love of human development and human behavior. And then where are you now?
So it very much was sparked by having people in my chair and me being curious about people's experiences of life and what they share and me like experiencing their pain that made me more curious about how humans are, how humans work. So I took the human potential coach training, which was life-changing for me. Not your typical quote unquote life coach training. It is all based in presence. And I remember my first day in training live, because most of it was on Zoom for about a year, but we had a 5-day intensive. And my first day, I ended up that night in my room, blackout, migraine, like convulsing on my bathroom floor, being like, what the heck is happening to me? And talking with the trainers the next day, learning about somatics, and that some of the stuff that we were learning was bringing up things in me.
Have you had to give up coffee for health reasons? Maybe because of the stress it was putting on your adrenals, maybe because it was messing with your sleep, maybe because you felt terrible after drinking it, or maybe because you were told coffee had mold on the beans and you needed to stay away from mold. Well, what if I told you there's an organic, mycotoxin-free, quality coffee that contains reishi spores or Ganoderma lucidum? Ganoderma lucidum helps to modulate your immune system, adapt to stress, balance hormones, and doesn't give you the jitters or shakes like regular coffee used to. Sounds too good to be true, right? It's called King Coffee by the company Organo. And King Coffee came into my life when I was struggling with chronic hives, full body eczema, and mast cell activation syndrome. I hadn't drank coffee in years because it made me feel anxious, shaky, and clammy. So I had no expectations that drinking King Coffee would be any different. However, I decided to give it a try after seeing lots of amazing practitioners talk about the benefits of reishi online. I tried a 7-day sample and the chronic hives were gone by day 5. I was in shock. After that, I dove into the research on reishi and found that there are over 3,000 peer-reviewed PubMed clinical trials using reishi Ganoderma as an intervention. The company Organo also has a patent protected on their harvesting process. They double crack open the spore shells, which makes them up to 80% more potent than the body of the reishi, which is usually used in other reishi products. This also makes the spores 90% more bioavailable for your body to use. If you would like to try King Coffee, visit thehealerrevolution.myorganogold.com, or for a 7-day trial, you can check out my link tree on my Instagram at Amanda Panacea.
So focusing on a whole different side of just like being behind the chair and talking to people. And I was like, whoa, we can have trauma in the body. Like, like learning completely other different facets. And the doctor who runs that program, Dr. Mark Atkinson, he also does training called psychological fitness specialist training. And he teaches about the different levels of consciousness and how to feel your way through that stuff, how to experience it, how to help other people experience it. And the more I learn about people and our bodies and our nervous systems and our brains and science, the more I don't know and the more I'm curious. So it's like, it's a cumulative giant rabbit hole of curiosity of like how our bodies work and how that weaves in through spirituality and all of that. Like, it's kind of never ending. So that's why I started coaching. I love it. But again, like we were talking about earlier with the burnout, I found lately in the last couple of years that coaching has become, like holding space for people has become really difficult. And I've had to create boundaries around that. And I would say I'm more in a consulting role right now. So instead of holding space and like fully coaching and guiding people through things, it's more like, give me your, I don't know, your tests, tell me about your symptoms. I want to know your history. And then let's see what that sparks in my mind from all of this rabbit holing I've been doing on health and wellness for years. And let's talk about alternative therapies and what I think that this sounds like, or, you know, what you could potentially, what rabbit holes that person could potentially tumble down, which has been really exciting. And my partner and I are now evolving that to pets. So, you know, I know you're a Cellcore practitioner, about learning through Cellcore what the drainage funnel is and how that works for humans was life-changing for me. Just supporting your monk trees, your drainage pathways, like what? What? As someone who had been like on that journey of trying to feel better with everything all my life, it's like now looking back, how many detoxes or cleanses or that kind of stuff did I do and just make myself worse from like not knowing that your body has a way of getting things out of it. Like everything that comes into your not even your field of awareness, but just into your area has to be filtered through you, whether that's words or toxins or I don't know, like they're tarring across the street right now, like smells, non-smells, anything, whether you can see it, touch it, taste it, is this chair, the fibers from this chair are being filtered through my environment. And, you know, and that's how your genes are expressed. So again, these rabbit holes, just like the more I learn, it kind of like becomes this like huge quantum thing. But while we were in quarantine, and I think I mentioned my dog got sick too. And it's not something we like to admit as human beings, but like if it's used on humans, it's been used on pets, like it's been used on animals, like it's just animal testing happens. And then all of this biohacking, all the things that I've done to help myself is never marketed to animals. So my partner and I are in the midst of trying to help because like our dog has what they call a mast cell tumor on her chest. And funny enough, my vet, like I had mast cell activation syndrome from living in mold. But a mast cell tumor couldn't have anything to do with the fact that we lived in mold. Her answer, and I have a very holistic vet, her answer is to cut my dog's chest open and remove like half of her chest cavity to get rid of this thing when she's already past her life expectancy for her breed. And she's so happy. I'm like, anyway, learning the things and applying the things that I've learned for myself. And then, yes, animals are different than us, but they're mammals. Like our pets are mostly mammals. And how can we then take care of them? And as well as doing that, like hit the other market, right? There are so many people out there these days who have pets and don't have children and spend everything on their pets and don't necessarily know for themselves that it's important to filter your water and your air. And like animals, I think the quote is like, they absorb 7 times the amount of toxins that we do because they're barefoot on the ground. They lick their feet. Their water dishes likely aren't cleaned every day. Bacteria accumulates, that kind of stuff. And the interesting thing for my pet is that dogs who have fur, they don't sweat. So if my major pathway to get rid of mold is through my skin, through sweating, how does that work for my dog? Right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I'm not a vet and I don't know everything about that, but it's like that nor would I ever know everything about anything, but right. Always learning, always open, always growing, always curious. But
so are you starting a business for pets or do you have something already?
Yeah, we are called the Woof Merchant.
Oh, okay.
And we haven't launched yet though. We are probably within a month or 2 of fully launching, but it'll be like an online store where, and maybe in the future we'll do a podcast about things that you can learn, just like you and I would learn about humans, but applied to pets. Because essentially it's the same, like it's so similar. Yeah. Everything that you teach about doing, like when it comes to drainage, is for humans is pretty similar to pets. So how can we support them and in turn educate the human to then do better for themselves? Mm-hmm. It's like the same thing, but like with a little bit of a different angle.
There's definitely some nuances to like nutrition and maybe a little bit how the body works and what the nutrients are needed. But, at Balanced Health, where we do the bioenergetic testing, we have a whole pet scan. And
you guys are one of our affiliates.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. Yeah. I was going to ask.
So on our site, we'll have things like tech. We've got air filtration, water filtration. We have yet to partner with a food company, but I'm hoping to get in with one of those like meat subscription boxes who will do that for pets, like the importance of rotating your proteins as long as your animals don't have allergies, treats, but like all from a values-based perspective of like non-toxic, regenerative farming. I'm sure most dog toys and beds are made of plastic, stuff with plastic covered in forever chemicals from China. So we've partnered with companies that make all organic wool or linen toys. So it's everything from lifestyle to, red light therapy, PEMF. Like we've partnered with Biomat. So again, there's a lot of things that you would recommend for humans.
Yeah.
But that can as well be used with pets. And then we have the Pet Medela bioresonance scans. And there's a couple other like sneaky things I have up my sleeve that we're working on, but it essentially is like a curated list. It looks like a store, but it's all affiliate based.
Got it.
In the meantime, we will educate what we can about how people can help their pets, because like, I know you have a bunny, and I'm sure you want that bunny to live as long and happy as possible, have the best life possible. And our animals, I guess it depends on how you look at it, but we choose our animals and we choose what they eat. By association of them living in the environment that we live in, they absorb the toxins that we absorb. And it's like, how can we do better by them and ourselves? It's interesting because I educate about this as well as you educate about this for humans, but I think humans are also, depending on where they're at, they can only take in so much. But when you throw the love of a pet in there, if we can angle it so that we can get people understanding, like, your toxic load matters. It matters. We just want to help people. We want to help people to feel the best that they can, live the best lives that they can. And by extension of that, also their pets.
Yeah, that's a really good list. I don't know anything like that already exists. So that'll be really helpful. Yeah. And a lot of people, they take better care of their pets than they do themselves. So.
Exactly. And, my partner and I, being so health and wellness focused, we've gone to conferences over the years, and there's all of these really great lines or biohacker lines. Like, the things that come to mind are like Wizard Sciences or like Just Thrive, like, or even microbe formulas. Like, they all have a pet formula. Mm-hmm. But when are you ever going to see that all in the same place?
Right. Yeah. It's very spread out. Mm-hmm. And you could definitely market towards like vets, because they probably need the education as well.
Yep. Yeah. And we'd like to introduce things like ozone therapy, the stuff that again, in the biohacking space is kind of curious for humans. Like, we use methylene blue with our pet. Mm-hmm. And it's great for her. But, a lot of people don't know what that is. Yeah. I feel like those things like ozone or methylene blue are off limits or scary, or, and again, it's like, if it's used on humans, it was tested on animals first. And yes, obviously, like, back to the story about my vet who didn't believe that my dog's mast cell issues had anything to do with mold. Well, I went ahead and ordered her fluconazole off the internet and put her on an antifungal treatment. And she's on the Boost and the Renew from Polypet. So she's taking her binder. She's got her mitochondrial support. And unfortunately, our healthcare system, along the lines like of the veterinary system, they're kind of taught the same way. It's like, remove the issue and then we'll talk about putting her on chemo, and it's like, would I do that to myself? If I was in her shoes and it was my body, would I like remove half of my stomach cavity in the late years of my life and then, put myself on a huge medication dosage? Like, so it all comes down to educating, being able to make better decisions. I mean, we do at home rectal treatments, ozone for the dog.
Oh, wow.
She doesn't care. I mean, obviously you need dosage to be right. And I've looked into liver markers and making sure that like that stuff is good. I mean, you don't want to hurt your animal, but I think because I've been quote experimenting on myself for so many years and having way more success than I ever have in the medical system, seeing my pet go through things that could be helpful for her. Like, she spends probably 3 hours a day on my pens mat. Mm-hmm. Even educating to the world the importance of EMF mitigation. Like, we have a whole section on EMF mitigation for animals as well. So again, most of the stuff on our site is for humans that can also be used for pets. I mean, save for like the dog treats and that kind of stuff. But like, what's important about that is the dog treats are human grade. If you needed to eat that food,
I love it. That's awesome. Well, by the time this comes out, you probably will be launched. So I'll put it like in the show notes. You can give it to me later.
Yeah. Awesome. We are www.thewoofmerchant.com. Come check us out and, hit me up if you have any questions. But we're just, trying to make the world a better place, helping people to become more aware of how to take care of themselves by, just avoiding toxins and, mm-hmm. and making sure that their environment is.
So I would consider you and your boyfriend like a more extreme experimenter.
Very true. Yes.
I don't think everyone's going to be as like open to some of the experiments that you've done with yourself, but I'm very curious to know what are like the most successful ones, and then what are some of like the bloopers? Like, ooh, I shouldn't have done that.
there isn't anything that I shouldn't have done because I've learned from everything and I value the learning experience. So, but like, I don't know, even my journey with Cellcore, like jumping into parasite cleansing and learning about Morley Robbins' work and, iron overload and all of that stuff, it's changed me and changed the way that I look at my body and how my body works, and learning about the nervous system. Like, I had a conversation with Dave Asprey once about cold plunging, and my partner is like cold plungeaholic. Like, he is in the ocean all the time. And I was joking about like how maybe in a past life I had been drowned or something, because you put me in the cold water and I'm like a bull seeing red. Like, I am murderous. And now in hindsight, like looking at, I didn't realize I was living in mold and how overstimulated my nervous system was and how harmful being in cold water potentially was to me at that time. Like, if you're already in a very low level state of fight or flight, like your biology feels it, and then like throwing yourself into cold water. But again, there's a learning experience, right? Like, being able to know to my core that it was not right for me in this moment. And when I say this moment, like, it could be right for me tomorrow, it could be right for me the next day. But there's all of this stuff out there, like in fitness, or about being like mentally pushing through things. And I think if you know yourself, that sometimes pushing through things is not the way to go.
Yeah. When I first learned about the nervous system, I was like, oh, this makes perfect sense. And one of the more inspirational things somebody said to me around that time, where I was starting to figure it out, like, okay, maybe I do have to do some trauma work. Maybe the brain and the limbic system is a part of my healing. Because I resisted it so much, of course, because I thought there's no way that that's what I needed. But something somebody said to me was, maybe it was the right intervention, but the wrong time. So like, don't just write off everything you ever tried thinking didn't work for me, because part of that nervous system fight or flight is just being unable to tolerate almost anything. And so when you figure out how to relax and go into parasympathetic and, surrender a little bit more to the process, once that nervous system isn't so like keyed up in nervous system immune PTSD, you're going to be able to tolerate and accept more things coming in that might be helpful for you. Because, people can react to everything. I've had people reacting to water. Obviously, you die without water.
Yeah.
So to me, that just screams so much more of that nervous system stress.
Well, and I think a super important part of that too is listening to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for the longest time, while I didn't realize I was burdened toxically, having nervous system like experiences and pushing myself to places I should not have went. So like, when you ask about these crazy biohacks and the things that I do, it's like, it's all information, and getting to know yourself and how your body works and how your brain works and getting out of your own way, like, I think is so important. And the ego is so powerful. Like, I remember, again, like hurling myself into these self-help programs. Like, there's a place where I live called The Haven, and I've gone and done a couple programs there, and I literally will fall asleep. My ego aversion takes over. But it took me a long time to realize if like I'm just getting antsy or frustrated, or like I got to the point where my legs would fall asleep. Like I was trying to confuse myself so that I wouldn't go there. We don't want to look at this. We don't like on a subconscious level. Right. But it's like, until I pushed myself to do those things, like, that's the reason I've learned that ego aversion was even a thing, like, so being open to experiencing things, even in a time where they might not serve you. I think there's always so much rich and valuable information in that. And it might not be, the super direct path to healing. I wouldn't say that that's been my experience, but yeah, I'm a silver linings kind of girl. And I choose to see life from a place of gratitude for every experience, so that I don't know, Amanda, like I'm in control. I'm in, anything can happen outside of me, but I'm the one who chooses how I experience it. And, sometimes I have a nervous system reaction, like I'm human, but I choose where I want to be. And I think that's one of the most important lessons in life, is to be curious and to experience what you're experiencing and not make it bad, and move through it, and then lather, rinse, repeat, get curious and do it all over again. And some people get that from traveling, they get perspective. Perspective is everything. And I just have been gaining perspective through clients, through different experiences in my own life, God, I'm a podcastaholic. Like, there is always information coming into my brain, whether I'm absorbing it or not, all of it or not is a different thing, but it's all really shaped who I am. And going back to the beginning of the story is like, I could choose to look at this from a place of lack, growing up, having a mother with chronic illness and divorce and moving a lot, and my brother getting in trouble. I could choose to be a victim of that, but that's not where I want to be. Right. And a lot of people don't realize that that's a choice. It's a subconscious one, but like that, man, I really like the person that I've become and that I am continuing to become. And is it easy all the time? No, but there are valuable lessons in every experience, and I can choose to look at them from a negative perspective or a positive one. And I remember back when I used to go to movie theaters, I think it was a Jeep commercial, and this commercial was like about their GPS system, and it was like going through life with a GPS, redirecting, like something has changed, and now you've taken the wrong turn or a different turn, and now you're redirecting. And that's what life is like.
Yeah. So that is like a quality of surrender there. You do have control, but still surrendering to the process.
Mm-hmm. And throwing myself to the wolves all the time just to see what happens. And again, not necessarily recommend that everybody do that. That's what works for me.
Yeah. And so what is the near future kind of looking like for you? I know we touched base on your new business, which is really exciting and I think really well needed. But I know you're in Canada, and I know you would like to expand where you may be residing just because of what's going on in the world. So I was wondering if you're comfortable sharing, like, maybe what are your goals and plans for the near future?
Yeah. So not fixed. They are not fixed at all. But with the way things have been going in Canada, part of the reason we wanted to create Woof Merchant for ourselves as well is so that we can be mobile. I can do coaching mobily anywhere as long as I have an internet connection. It's the same thing with the Woof Merchant. So I can also do hair anywhere I want, but as I was saying, I don't really want to evolve relationships with new people in new places. That's more about the connection for me than it is the artistry at this point. So we have so many friends in alignment with us when it comes to making the world a better place. So the plan is to be able to be mobile. And maybe we'll end up in the States. Maybe we'll end up in Mexico. We've got friends all over the world. It's a beautiful thing about connecting on Instagram and being a part of what we call the biohacking community, which is a word I'm actually trying to get away from, because people who don't know what biohacking means think that it's a big, scary thing. And I mean, God, if you just Google biohacking in dogs, like the stuff that comes up is like gene editing software. And guys, I am not trying to do anything with editing the genes of your animals.
Well, I think a lot of people have a correlation with the word biohacking with like dudes trying to get really ripped. At least that's what people have told me. And I'm like, that's not what I think about it, but I guess I can see that, like Silicon Valley. So I try not to use it either, but I don't have that aversion to it like some people do.
Yeah. I just think from a marketing perspective, I mean, we already have the biohackers.
Yeah.
Right? And so if you use the words that non-biohackers don't understand, or like don't get the wholeness of, I guess, like, yeah, we're still trying to figure out what that looks like exactly, but it's alternative, right? Like hemp or red light therapy or any of those things that are like regular day-to-day stuff to me, or infrared technology, like all of that is biohacking. Taking a supplement is biohacking. I mean, trying to make any system better is biohacking. It doesn't even have to be a health thing. Well, I guess with the word biohacking, yes, it's a health thing, but
brain hacking, mental hacking.
Yeah, exactly. And so like we're dog hacking, but like that doesn't sound
spirit hacking.
Yes. Yeah, I'm kind
create
of
some new hashtags.
Yeah, something like that.
Dog hacking? Yeah, no.
I don't know. That sounds really bad. Dog holing. We're trying to that's even bad too. Like we're trying to put them back together.
Go back to the drawing board for that one for a while.
Yeah, right. So it's interesting too, like the way we communicate in language. And Amanda, there's rabbit holes we could jump into, like roots of words, even that like the world is a very interesting place. I would say my word of the last 3 years has been interesting. Like I just find everything fascinating and interesting. It's like, again, from a non-judgmental place, it's watching what's going on in the world is very interesting. And going back to like where I want to be and what I want to do with my life is getting back into alignment with raising the consciousness of the planet and helping people to understand how to become empowered and how to take care of themselves and how to take responsibility, because we've been conditioned from the time we're little that we outsource our health, that there's a pill for every ill. And I mean, like, how do people not know about the drainage funnel? Like it blows my mind. I mean, you don't specifically need supplements to implement how the drainage funnel works. And if you know how your body drains, there's your answer to like more than half, 3/4 of your health problems. And then it's just removing stuff that's stuck in the drainage, right? And it's like, how come we weren't taught how our bodies work? And instead, we were taught, if you're depressed, you need to take a pill. And if you have a headache, you need to take a pill. And it's like, there's no one out there who has a Tylenol deficiency, So how do we come back to helping people to understand that they're their own sovereign human, that they can grow their own food, they can make their own happiness, they can be grateful for what they have, and completely shift this idea that we have to keep up with the Joneses and the bullshit rules, and to step into the driver's seat to create your own life from a place of positivity. And I mean, you could even go down like the whole manifestation rabbit hole there, but quantum. Very quantum, right? It's like the more I learn, here's a funny way to describe this, but like sometimes I sit down to create content on Instagram, and it's like even like having discussions or chats, I cannot just stay to one subject because everything to me is connected.
It is, yeah.
So it's, and I have a little bit of a squirrel brain. I definitely, I'm still working on the brain fog a little bit. I still have those moments now and again, but I will tumble down whatever rabbit hole that my brain is drawn to in the moment. So, and it's happened several times on this podcast. I start here and I end up way over there, but they're all connected. And the idea, rather lack of idea, like the thought that they're not connected, that we're taught that things are separate. We're taught, like the whole LGBTQ community right now, like I am the biggest ally you've ever met. But seriously, this division and these labels that separate us, I really believe are problematic. It's important that we remember who we are, and we all bleed the same color. And we're all trying to do the best we can with what we have in life, and that we're not separate and we're not different. Again, a million rabbit holes you could tumble down on those words there when it comes to race, gender, all of that stuff. But I truly believe at the end of the day that we're all the same.
Yeah.
We've all had different experiences and different conditioning and have come from different lineages that have had their own traumas. But at the end of the day, we have bodies that are imprinted on from the experience of our ancestors and our environment. And we can be empowered to learn and grow to get back to a place of loving each other and accepting one another for everything, instead of othering each other and making everyone separate and different.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that our differences should be celebrated 100%.
Oh yeah, but I totally agree with you. And I think that is a beautiful way that you just wrapped this up. I couldn't have done it any better.
Thank you.
So I've just had a really fun time getting to know you even more. I learned so much, and I'm really excited for all of your new business endeavors. And I wish you the best of luck with everything you have going on always. And I just really think you're such a light and a unique person in this space. So thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Amanda. This was fun.
Yeah, you're welcome. And if you just wanted to let everyone know where to find you, if you have websites besides the one you already mentioned and Instagram, I'll also put them in the show notes.
Yeah, I am at Jenna McInnes on Instagram. My website is jennamckinnes.com. Wolf Merchant is www.wolfmerchant.com or The Wolf Merchant. And on Instagram, we are The Wolf Merchant as well. I think I am on Facebook for me personally, but it's just all a continuation of Instagram because managing platforms is a lot. Yeah, I think that's about it.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you on the internet.
Yeah, girl, I'll see you on the gram.
Thank you so much for listening to the Healer Revolution podcast. If you're enjoying what you're listening to, please do me a favor and subscribe, leave a comment, anything that can help get this information out to more people who may be struggling. You can also find me online at thehealerrevolution.com or amandapanacea.com. And you can also find me on Instagram at amandapanacea. Thank you so much for joining the revolution.